Welcome to Energetic Advantage, the podcast where energy isn't woo, it's your edge. I'm your host, Jessica Serrato, intuitive strategist, lifelong pattern decoder, lover of numbers, and energetic guide for visionary leaders. Around here, we go energy first, strategy second. Every episode will give you a perspective, a tool, or a timeline shift that helps you lead from your power. Because the truth is, your energy is your most undervalued asset until you learn how to use it. Get ready, you're about to have the advantage. Let's begin. Okay, my friends, welcome back. Laughing at myself this morning, as sometimes I am just too freaking accurate, even for my own liking. Because right now, I feel like I'm in such an in-between place. It feels very liminal, like a threshold. Remember the August energy? Yes, I am right smack in the middle of it. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because it has to do with my app, Inner Compass. I literally have no idea by the time you are hearing this if we will be fully launched or not. And maybe that's the point. Strategically, I thought about recording 2 different intros to this podcast, one saying, woohoo, we're live, the other one saying, ooh, not yet. And, I just feel there's something about coming to you exactly where I am. So the amazing news is that we have had beta testers on both Google Android and Apple. The app is performing so well, and we are so close to the final launch where it will be shared with the world. And at this point, I am super curious actually which day this will be, because of course, each day has a different energy. I have my guesses, but we'll see what happens. And the best thing I can do and share here is check the show notes, check my socials. If the app is out, I would love for you to try it out. We have a free 7-day trial, and we're also doing a really fun event where you get to spend some time with me for the first 7 days using the app. It's like having your phone in your pocket with the app, but also having like Jessica in your back pocket with the app. I'm going to take you through the app. We're going to do some challenges. We're going to play some games. We're going to do some giveaways, all in an effort to really embrace our own inner compass. So thank you, August, for this threshold energy. Thank you for the liminal space. The in-between has been interesting. And I'm curious how this has felt for you. I'm laughing thinking back. Even last week, we were at the lake with my family, and I would go out for a paddle and I would come back and there would be a message from Apple, like completely changing the trajectory of the timeline. And it's so interesting how things can change in just a moment when we are in this space in between. And if you're like me, this liminal space, this threshold space, sometimes it's a bit uncomfortable. And so I know that you are going to love what I'm going to say today, because we are about to shift into September. And with the new month comes a new energy. And that's what today's podcast is about, the September energy forecast. So let's get into it. September is always one of the most interesting months of the year, because September does something that no other month does. It mirrors the year. Because it is the 9th month, if you've been around, you've heard me talk about the 9 as the mathematical mirror. 9 has this incredible ability to bring back the energy we started with. So when we take the 9 of September and add it to the universal year, 2026, we get a 1 energy. So welcome to the 1. And because of this, because of the way September works, September is kind of like this crescendo of the year, right? We've been moving through the year. We've been gathering information. We've been experimenting. We've been meeting different versions of ourselves. And then we get to September. And September holds the same energy as the year. So 2026 is a 1. September 2026 is a 1. And we get this sense of, okay, here it is. That part of the music where it just swells. This is what we've been building towards. This is what all of those kind of seemingly disconnected moments were showing us. In this year in particular, we say this is the constellation. And the phrase that kept coming through for me for September is the power of one. Because I think we dramatically underestimate the one. And I hope by the end of this conversation today, you are not going to do that anymore. Of course, one is technically the quote unquote lowest number in numerology. And yet, nothing happens without it. There is no 10 without the one. There is no 100 without the one. There is no 1,000 without the one. There is no movement without the first movement. There is no relationship without the first conversation, without the first kiss. There is no business without the first customer. There is no book without the first word. There is no revolution without the first person willing to say, I see something differently. And we live in a culture that is obsessed with multiplication. 10x, 100x, quantum leap, scale, more followers, more money, more impact, more reach, more everything. And get it, I love expansion. But September is reminding us that multiplication is impossible without something worth multiplying. Before 10x comes 1x. Before the 100 comes the 1. Before the movement comes the individual. And before the strategy comes the identity. This has been one of the biggest messages of 2026. And I know you all have felt it because my messages are filled with people who are really working through identity. Who before what? Energy first, strategy second, identity first. The most important question this year has not been, what should I do? It's been, who am I? And if you've been working with this question all year, you're going to love September. And if not, get ready because September turns the volume way up on this. If we feel into this energy of September, it's like you're standing underneath a spotlight. But the interesting thing is nobody has turned the spotlight on you. It's almost as if everything else around you has simply fallen away. The clutter is gone, the noise is gone, these old identities are gone. Some of the things that you thought mattered don't matter anymore. I want you to sit with this. Like some of the things that you were desperately trying to figure out 6 months ago suddenly are not even questions. And I want you to feel into this. Think back to January, February. And if it helps, look back at your calendar. I just did this a few days ago and I was shocked and also just had to laugh out loud at myself, right? Of, wow, I really thought that mattered. And now it doesn't. When all of that disappears, what's left in September becomes incredibly obvious. You. It's as simple as that. You. And this is why I think September is going to feel very revealing. Not necessarily because any big secret is exposed, but because it will become harder to hide from yourself. There are going to be things about your identity that become impossible to ignore. I am this. I want this. I don't want this anymore. This matters to me. This doesn't. This is how I want to work. This is how I want to live. This is what I am available for. And this is what I'm no longer willing to negotiate. There is tremendous power in being able to put a period after each one of those sentences. I am, period. And that is one energy. Driving back from the lake, I was a passenger princess, as they call it. And I was staring out the truck window and I started seeing all of these circles, all different sizes, floating in and out of each other. And I knew it was a message for September. Circles, full circles, things coming full circle, completion, integration. But then I kept hearing these two words over and over again. Perfect circle. And you've probably heard that a million times. Perfect circle. It's a perfect circle. And at first, I kind of thought it was connected to perfectionism because perfectionism is absolutely one of the shadows and the challenges I'm seeing this month. But the more I sat with it, and we had a 6-hour drive, so I was sitting with it, I realized this truth that is so deep to my core. I can't believe I didn't even feel this before. The circle is not perfect because there is nothing wrong with it. The circle is perfect because it can't not be. It is impossible. Because then, you know what I did? I went down the rabbit hole of the mathematics of a circle, and mathematically, a circle is simply the collection of all points that are exactly the same distance from one fixed point, the center. Think about that. The points aren't in the same place. They're not doing the same thing. One is at the top, one is at the bottom, way over here, whatever. They can occupy every possible angle. And yet, all of these points belong to the same circle because every single one of them maintains the same relationship to the center. So maybe a circle isn't perfect because every point is perfect. It's not. It's perfect because every point is in right relationship with the center. And tell me this isn't the entire freaking lesson of this 1 year and now this 1 month. Because what is the center? The one. The center is identity. The center is the who. The center is you. And the center does not run around the circumference trying to organize everything. It doesn't chase every point. It doesn't micromanage the circle. It holds its position. And everything else organizes itself in relationship to it. And this is what I mean when I keep saying identity first, strategy second. Because if you, the center, move out of that position, you're messing with the circle, right? It is, of course, no longer perfect. And so the goal isn't to perfectly arrange every circumstance in your life. It's truly to know your center so deeply that your circumstances can organize themselves around it. The who becomes coherent. And then the what can take 1,000 different forms without you losing yourself. And then we gotta talk about pie because this gets even better. This came through at like hour 4 of the drive. Okay, for every single circle, the circumference divided by the diameter gives us the same number, pi. 3.1415926535. I don't remember the rest. Okay. So whether we're talking about a circle the size of a coin or an enormous theoretical circle the size of the universe, that relationship remains, which means the circle can expand without losing its fundamental relationship because pi never ends. Come on. Because how often do we think expansion requires being someone else? I need to become bigger, more successful, more sophisticated, more polished, more whatever. But what if real expansion isn't abandoning your original code? What if expansion is allowing the truth of who you already are to occupy more space? Your circumference getting bigger. Your reach gets bigger. Your capacity, your impact, your life gets bigger. But the underlying relationship, the pie, stays intact. You expand without leaving your center. And I think that's a really important distinction because expansion without a center, I don't think is expansion. I feel it's more distortion. You know, and I haven't even got to my favorite part yet. Here it is. Like pi never ends, right? Its decimal expansion goes on infinitely without repeating. There is no final digit, right? This is why you have your teachers try to memorize as many digits of pi, knowing that you're never going to be able to do the whole thing, right? Which means built into the mathematics of the circle, this beautiful sacred geometry shape, is something that literally never finishes. And yet, the circle is complete. And this might be one of the most important things I can tell you about September. Completion does not require finality. They're two different things. Completion says this is whole, and finality says nothing else will ever happen here. And we definitely conflate these too, right? We think we can't celebrate something because we're still improving it. We can't acknowledge ourselves because there's always another level. We can't call something complete because technically there is more we could do. Of course there is. There will always be more. Pie keeps going. And the circle is still whole. So September, although it will try to convince you otherwise, it's not asking you to finish everything so you can finally call yourself complete. It's really asking you to recognize what is already whole while it continues to unfold. And this is an entirely different relationship with perfection. And this is where perfect circle becomes fascinating to me, because we've completely messed up the definition of perfection. We think perfection means nothing could possibly be improved. No flaws, no mistakes, no rough edges, nothing out of place. But again, geometrically, if every point is equidistant from the center, it's a circle. It doesn't need to try harder to become more circularly. It doesn't need another certification in circularity, whatever that word is. It doesn't need to look at the circle beside it and wonder if that circle is doing a better job of being a circle. It just is. Perfection is not the absence of imperfection. Perfection is the integrity of the whole. So being perfect doesn't mean nothing could ever change. Having a perfect moment or being perfect means nothing needs to be different for this moment to be whole. And that is such, I feel, a beautifully different invitation, because suddenly we're not trying to perfect our lives. We're really learning to recognize the wholeness of our lives and just how perfect our lives are, just as they are. Whew. You know, there's an other mathematical piece here that connects, I feel, so beautifully to the power of one, which is that a circle has no inherent first point. Yes, there is the center, but if you look at a circle, it's like, well, where's the beginning? Where's the end, right? You can choose one, of course, you can put 0 degrees somewhere. We can decide, okay, I'm starting here, but the circle itself doesn't say, this is where I begin and this is where I end. Because where does a circle begin? Anywhere, and also nowhere. And this fascinates me because, we are culturally obsessed with firstness. Who invented it first? Who said it first? Who launched it first? Who thought of it first? Who got there first? The moon, right? And the circle is like, who cares? Because the evolved expression of the one is not about being first. It's about being centered. The power of one isn't the power of being first. It's the power of knowing your center. You don't have to be the first person doing what you're doing. You don't have to be the only person. You don't have to prove your originality by isolating yourself. You need to know who you are, and that is different. And I laugh at there's so many moments in pop culture. I mean, stay with me if you're my age, of Beverly Hills 90210, when Brenda and Kelly showed up at the prom in the same dress, right? Like, oh my gosh, right? Or, just think in business. I hear so many times, I can't do that, even though I really want to because she's already doing it. Why not? Why not? There is room for all of us. There are room for a million black and white prom dresses. If you want to wear it, if you want to do it, it doesn't matter if you are the first. If it is true to you, do it. And it's so interesting how many times I see people in an effort to be unique change themselves because they're trying to figure out, okay, what has no one else done yet? Okay, well, then that's what I will do. But that is, again, looking at the outside of the circle before you go into your center. We'll go to another phrase that has been coming through so strongly for me. And it's so fascinating, even in my mastermind thread. In my mastermind, I have women who are just so, how do I even describe them? Amazing, deeply devoted to their life, to their business, to their vision, to their families. And just over the weekend here, without me even prompting, without even me talking about this, two of them came in and were like, I feel like these things are coming full circle. And I was like, yep, that's September. That phrase that we use all the time, I've come full circle. And we usually mean sometimes that it's somehow returned to where we started. But have we? Because even if you arrive at what looks like the same point of a circle, you're obviously not the same person who left it. You've traveled the circumference. You've experienced every point along the way. You've seen things from different angles. You've gathered information. You've changed. So full circle isn't regression, it's integration. We're encountering, yes, the beginning again, but now we've experienced more things and we're carrying everything we've gathered along the way, which means the same point now means something completely different, right? And this goes back to this metaphor that I've been feeling for August and September, which is like all of these stars. We've spent this whole year, 2026, looking at individual stars. This happened, then I met this person, then this fell apart, then I changed my mind, then this opportunity appeared, then I went over here. And sometimes it looked completely random. In parts of the year, I was like, oh my gosh, like where am I going? It felt like I was trying to do a connect the dots, but I was doing it in completely like wrong order. But September is where you're going to be like, okay, zoom out. Because when we zoom out far enough, the individual stars become the constellation. And then the individual points become the circle. And suddenly we see, aha, that belonged and that belonged. And every point belongs. And maybe that's what I've been hearing when I hear perfect circle. It's not a circle where nothing went wrong, right? It hasn't been a year where every decision was correct. It hasn't been a life without mess or contradiction or things that we wished we'd done differently. A circle where every point belongs. Every quote unquote wrong turn, every delay, every identity that you've had to outgrow, everything you tried that didn't work, every person who came in and every person who left, every success and every disappointment. Every moment where you thought, and I've had many points this year where I thought, what the F am I doing? It's all circumference. We don't have to erase any of it to make the circle whole. That is what September is asking us to recognize. We don't need to perfect the circle. We don't need to go back and fix every point. We don't need to make the journey look cleaner in hindsight. We just need to find our center and then look around, because the circle was never imperfect. We just weren't far enough away yet to see the shape. So this is this intersection where September is carrying this beginning energy of the one, but it arrives through the 9th month, which carries culmination. So we're simultaneously dealing with beginnings and endings, something completing so something else can become visible. And, again, something that happened in January will suddenly make sense now. A decision from March connects to something happening now. And the stars are becoming the constellation. And specifically, I want you to mark this on your calendar, September 10th and 11th. There is something about that point in the month that feels very much like recognition for me, where our perspective will shift and we will see it. We talked about this concept of perfection, and this is one of the biggest shadows of September, because when the light gets brighter, as we step more into the spotlight, of course, we see more imperfections, right? My daughter has a vanity upstairs with like all of the lights around it. And you look up close at your skin and you're like, wow, right? You can see your skin better. And then of course you see all the imperfections. It's like putting something underneath the spotlight and you see everything. And so I think some people if you're listening, you might get to this point in the year, look at everything that you've created, and instead of seeing what exists, you're going to immediately notice what's missing or like the blemishes. It's not finished, or I'm not ready, or I need this, or another edit, another whatever. And perfection is such a clever hiding place because it can look very much like ambition, right? It can look like high standards. It can look like excellence. But sometimes perfectionism is simply this thought of, I am unwilling to acknowledge that I've arrived somewhere because then I would have to let myself be seen there. And September says, look around, because you may already be standing inside something that you once prayed for. Maybe it's not the final version, but that's the point. Perfection is a moving target. And if perfection is the requirement for completion, nothing will ever feel complete. So one of the questions I want you to ask yourself this month is, what am I ready to stop fixing? So not abandon, not neglect, but stop fixing. What if something is allowed to be complete, even though it could still become better? When we feel into this one, when we put it on the Pythagorean energy grid, that tic-tac-toe, where all 9 numbers have their own spot in those 9 spaces, the 1 is on the bottom left-hand side, which means it is a physical number and it is feminine. And this combination is so important this month because identity cannot remain theoretical forever. It's not like we can just sit back and be like, oh, I'm just answering the question of who am I, right? At some point, who you say you are has to become visible in the physical world through a decision, a boundary, a conversation, a price, a launch, a resignation, a commitment, a purchase, a creation, whatever, a yes, a no. One energy is asking you, where is the physical evidence of the identity that you say you have become? Show me the receipts. Because you can think differently forever. But eventually identity becomes matter. And this is why September is not asking for 100 things. It might just be asking for one thing. And we can't underestimate that. One decision that changes the trajectory. One conversation that you've been avoiding. One boundary that closes an old identity. One commitment that makes this new identity real. 1 degree of movement. 1 degree seems insignificant, right? Until you keep traveling. Until eventually you end up somewhere completely different. Don't underestimate the power of the 1. In the app, I give you a day by day daily forecast and how all of these dates connect. I also give you highlighted dates for the month, but I do want to share 2 specific dates that I feel are very connected here in the podcast. September 10th and the 23rd. So September 10th feels like action, right? Doing something, saying something, choosing something. And your mind is not going to completely understand why. It's like one of those moments where your energy might know before your brain catches up. Then we get to September 23rd. And something about the meaning becomes clear. You're going to understand the reason. The mind will catch up with the movement. And I want to emphasize this because we're so accustomed to believing that understanding has to precede action. First, I understand, and then I move. But energy doesn't always work like that. Sometimes the body moves, and then the mind receives the explanation. And so if something feels like you want to do something, but you're not sure why on September 10th, notice it. And you don't need to force meaning onto it. You just need to do it. Give it room. And September 23rd is going to tell you more about that. An other date that I want to bring to your attention is September 18th, because that's when we collectively move into Uranus energy. So throughout the year, you, based on your birth date, go through 7 cycles of 52 days, each governed by a particular planet. Collectively, we go through that from January 1 to December 31st, which is the Joker. And so September 18th is the shift out of Saturn and into Uranus. And Uranus is this energy of innovation, of disruption, of originality, of the unexpected, the thing that doesn't fit the existing model. And I keep on getting this phrase, Easter eggs found. Little clues, things that were hidden in plain sight. Something that you dismissed suddenly becomes relevant. Connections that you didn't realize were connections, right? Unexpected information. And this sits beautifully inside this energy of the one, because the one is the innovator. It is the pioneer, the spark, the person willing to go first. But there is a shadow of this. The disempowered one believes that innovation requires isolation. Again, I have to do this myself. And there is this mythology around the visionary, the lone genius, the person sitting alone in the room who creates something that no one else could have imagined. And the ego loves that story because the disempowered side of the one wants to say, I did this myself. I am the only one who can do it correctly. If I let someone else touch it, it won't be purely mine. If someone else contributes, I lose my hold on it. If I stay alone, I stay in control. And this is actually the innovator's version of perfectionism, I feel. Because innovation does not require isolation. And actually, I'm going to go a step further and say that isolation can actually kill innovation. Think about it. Ideas become sharper through conversation. Different expertise changes what is possible. People introduce resources to you. Someone asks you a question that you couldn't see. Someone knows a guy that you need, right? Someone challenges the assumption that your entire idea was sitting on. The empowered one does not need to diminish its individuality in order to collaborate. That's the maturity of the one. And September is mature one energy. Can I remain sovereign and supported? Can I remain original and resourced? Can I be the visionary without needing to be the only visionary in the room? Because leadership is not proving that you can carry everything yourself. Of course, leadership is knowing what only you can do, and also knowing that you were never supposed to do it alone. What I want you to hear is this. Your identity does not become more powerful because someone else's identity becomes smaller. This is one of the biggest paradoxes of 2026, and it will really come to a head in September. Everyone is the one. Everyone gets a spark. Everyone has this initiation energy. Everyone is being asked, who am I now? Who do I want to initiate? What am I willing to lead? And there is something incredibly beautiful about that for me. Leadership becoming accessible. There are no chosen ones. No people put up on pedestals. No one has to tap you on the shoulder. No one has to give you permission. That spark, like I said, exists in everyone. But here's the shadow. Because what happens when everybody thinks that they're the one? Power struggles, competing visions, everybody initiating and nobody sustaining, everybody wanting this autonomy and nobody wanting collaboration, everyone wanting their idea to win. And this is what we have to remember. I am one, and so are you. My uniqueness does not threaten yours. Your leadership does not diminish mine. I can stand fully inside my identity without requiring you to abandon yours. This is mature one energy, and I think there'll be some interesting lessons that we see in the collective of how this plays out in September. Another concept that has been a broader 2026 theme, but is really coming here in the one energy of September, is really knowing what you stand for. And for a couple years now, I think the society has become really good at being against things, against this policy, against that person, against that ideology, against that company, against that side. You can even see it on social media within the online business space, against what they do, right? And regardless of where you stand on any particular issue, the energetic posture is always the same, against. It's reactive. And this reactive energy is very expensive. And so this next cycle, this September, is really asking us this completely different question, which is, what are you for? Resistance can tell you what you don't want, but it cannot build the thing that you do want. And innovation needs support. Innovation needs money, attention, conversation, belief, energy, community. It needs people willing to say, I want more of this in the world. So instead of spending all of your energy fighting what you don't want, September is going to ask you, what deserves your $1, your $1, your 1 hour, your 1 vote, your 1 share, your 1 purchase, your 1 piece of attention? Because this is another way that we underestimate the power of one. We think, what difference will my one thing make? But everything collective is made of individual ones. And this is really, I think, where I want to land September. You don't necessarily need to 10x or 100x anything. Maybe you just need to identify the one thing that is true, the one thing that is complete, the one decision that wants to be made, this one person that you can help, and this one person or thing that you're willing to support, the one place where your energy actually belongs. Because precision compounds. When the one is right, quote unquote, or situated in its correct place, everything built on top of it has integrity. But when the one is wrong or off center, you can pile enormous amounts of strategy on top and wonder why nothing feels stable. This is why identity comes first. The who before the what. Energy before strategy. It's not because strategy doesn't matter. It's because strategy needs somewhere coherent to originate from. And so as you move through this month of September, I'm going to leave you with some questions that I want you to carry. Who am I now? Who am I now? Not who I was in January. Not who do people expect me to be. Who am I now? The second, what has come full circle? What can I finally see from where I'm standing? And what can I acknowledge? Especially if it's something that you've been really too busy improving to celebrate. The next question, what am I ready to stop fixing? What if it's already enough to be called complete? What truth has become impossible to ignore? Where am I isolating in the name of independence? Like, who could make this idea bigger, sharper, easier, more alive for me? And spoiler, it's not you. What am I for? Where do I actually want my attention, my money, my voice, and my energy to go? And sometimes this is interesting to me because I know this can be a very challenging question for a lot of people. Because when I ask people this, sometimes it's hard for them to say what they're for because they can tell me a list of things that they don't like or that they're against. But really flipping that and just noticing this month how much energy you spend talking about something that you don't agree with, talking about something that you don't like, talking about things that you would never do, or like think about, just be aware of how much energy you actually put there. And remember, where your energy goes, it grows. So stop doing that. And instead, where do I actually want my energy to go? What am I for? And this last question, and this might change throughout the month, what is my one? If you stop trying to change everything this month, what is the one decision or the one movement or the one conversation, the one physical action that would represent who you are now? Because you want to stand in that spotlight. let's take this podcast full circle now. You want to be able to stand in that spotlight with everything else fallen away. Doesn't mean that everything is finished. Doesn't mean that everything is perfect. Doesn't mean that you finally reached some destination where nothing else needs to change. But you're perfect. You are perfect exactly where you are. And you realize, oh, here I am. And from that place, something new can begin. Because the one is not small. One person can change a family. One conversation can change a relationship. One idea can change an industry. One boundary can change a life. One decision can change a trajectory. One person believing in something can eventually give thousands of people permission to believe in it too. Before anything becomes many, it is one. And so this September, don't underestimate it. Don't underestimate the person, the idea, the choice. And truly, most importantly, my wish for you is to not underestimate the power of you, because the power of one is the power of you, because you are the one. We all are. And it's just such a beautiful reminder in the energy this month. Whew. Well, September, ready or not, here we come. If this conversation sparked something in you, I'd love for you to share it with a friend. If the Inner Compass app is live, I'd love for you to join us. You can get it on either Google Play or in the Apple Store. Not the actual physical store. You know what I'm saying. In the App Store. And you'll also find a link to the 7-day challenge that we'll be doing together, because this is the time to double down on you, to become that center of the circle that has infinite opportunity to expand. And it all starts with one choice. And that choice is to believe in you. Thank you, my friends, for visiting with me here, for having this conversation. I truly am grateful that you take your time and your attention to do that. And I just love you so much. I'll talk to you again next time. Bye. Thanks for being here inside the Energetic Advantage. If today's episode opened something for you, share it, tag it, or send it to the person who popped into your mind. And remember, energy first, strategy second. Your advantage has always been in you. Now it's time to lead with it. See you next time.